look at that. I didn't get to that detail, and now that I'm standing here thinking about it, we could say, okay, what if we did 3 wells in Redfield, not a 4th, built a smaller water plant to treat for 3 wells, not 4, and then we supplemented with Xenia. What does that look like?
So what is our annual, I apologize, I can't remember this off the top of my head, Ash, but this question's to you, what's our annual expense to Xenia? What do we pay them here? $1.5
She's got a bid.
Just a ballpark. What I'm trying to get
She's
at
got a bid.
is, we don't pay for that water that we would pump from Redfield, correct?
Right, yeah.
So,
Well, yes, because there's the pumping costs.
Yeah, there's costs for it, but you're not paying Xenia anything.
we're not paying for the water, that's correct, we're paying for the
Just the
operation.
electricity and the operation.
Yeah, paying for
The electricity is considerable.
Yeah, so you could figure that in. So what I'm trying to get at, I don't even know if this is even worth discussing, but I was gonna throw it out there. What's the payback on a water treatment plant? Let's say it's 10 million worst case. If we're paying down $1.5 million at 7 years, never mind. Okay. Be quiet. I was just wondering about staging that.
I know.
Okay.
So we can look at that blending. So what we did look at is, okay, if you go out and spend $10 million for a water plant, $1 million for a new wells, and versus paying bulk rates to Xenia, there's a tipping point between the two. So
Volume based?
no, cost based.
Okay.
There's a tipping point between, because what you would do is you would borrow the $11 million at a
Horrible interest rate.
at actually 3% interest rate.
How would you get 3%?
SRF funding is
look at you.
3.1% right now.
Yeah.
And we have O&M costs. We put the O&M costs in there, and that, of course, we inflated those with, I can't remember, 4%, I think, per year. And then we took a present worth of that, and then we looked at what Xenia's charging. And basically what we came up with, and here's the fuzzy crystal ball part, is
Sarah, thank you.
if we think Xenia's rates are going to increase by 4% or less for the next 20 years annually, then financially you're better off staying with Xenia. If we think the rates from Xenia are going to be 4% or more per year for the next 20 years, you're better off building your own water plant and financing that, because you can build your own water plant and finance it. 3.1%, O&M's going up 4%. So that rate point is, if Xenia's going to charge you more than that, that's kind of where that's at.
So does that growth consider what we pass to our customers, or is that just what they charge us?
That's just what they charge.
Because as we grow, the boards currently pass the total cost back, right?
Yeah.
So it's 4% of what Xenia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just, we pay them $401,000 most recent year. So I thought it was a lot higher than in gallons charged. Am I reading that right?
That seems low.
What was that number, I'm sorry?
This is total paid to Xenia. I just thought.
400,000 is the dollar amount, not the expense.
Right. Yeah, $401,000, that seems.
Yeah, it's usually like about 40,000 a month, somewhere in there.
Yes.
Revenue's more. Okay. I don't know if this conflicts with something you got.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was higher too. But because of the town growth and board suppressing costs, we haven't passed 4% to the citizens.
Yeah.
So this turns,
That may change some things, Sarah, with that. I'll have to look at this table, but.
Sure.
Because I was thinking that's more like 700,000. Big difference.
The monthly bill we get from Xenia is usually between 30 and 35,000.
Okay.
so it starts that out.
Yeah. Does that include Rose Acres? Oh, no,
This is
Yes.
what we pay
Big
for our
Xenia,
water.
which is all
Right.
water, that'd be all water,
This
that
isn't
includes,
what we collect.
right, but that includes water that would go out to
Yes.
Rose
That's
Acres.
just everybody.
That's everybody, okay. So we need to look at some numbers. The other thing we want to look at too is we want to look and see what has Xenia's rates, what have they been doing over the last 20 years? Sarah is working on that.
Last year, miraculously, they didn't go up at all.
Yeah, I know. We're
We're
at
far
like
out
1%.
rate,
And
that's why we're here, right? I mean, that's,
I know.
we don't have this discussion with Citgo, they're a great partner.
So I don't have a final report tonight, but this is kind of where we're at and the direction we're going.
And so, the only question I was asking about that mix ratio of Xenia and the Redfield wells is if there's a cost, a cost benefit of, like you said, you only have to have this large and you phase in that
Mhm.
size of that plant over time but I was, again, trying to look at it from an interest rate savings, but at 3%, you're not gonna beat that anyway, so.
Right. But
Never mind
we'll
on
look
that.
at that, say, okay, what if we, instead of 4 wells, 3 wells, and a
Yeah.
smaller plant, and we'll still buy from Xenia, what is that? Kind of the in-between.
Yeah, and you said this, so this was figured on a 20-year payback, 20-year term, and.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah, 20-year payback, 20-year.
Amortization.
Yep.
Is that 1 to 8% above and beyond the 4%?
No, that-
Annual inflation?
No, that would be Xenia only raised your, increase your rates 1% last year, so it makes more sense. No, it's their total increase.
So where is the 4% inflation built into?
That's built into, that's built into the operational costs, that new Redfield well, new annual average expense. We annualized, we took that 4% and averaged it over the 20 years.
So that's why it's static here.
That's why it's static.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an average annual.
Okay.
So other surrounding communities, Redfield, Dexter, is Dexter still on those wells, or is
Yeah.
he? Okay.
Yeah,
Anybody,
Redfield
so
is-
Menora's probably off of Lake Panorama, is that what you, no?
They got wells.
They're off the, well, they have, I think, some alluvial wells right next to the river, so
Okay.
it's surface influence,
Oh, yeah.
I think.
For other communities that are solely on Xenia and don't have other options at this point, they don't have contingencies, what contingencies might they be looking at or that you've heard about? Or are there other service providers anywhere that others are trying to look to tap into? Is that info, if that's possible, if Xenia really has that much competition anywhere?
No, the rural water districts have, the federal government set them up, so they have their territories, and they don't cross territories. So you can't go get water from another rural water district.
So if anything ever happens to Xenia, the company, another area would just, or somebody else would just pick up the slack.
Yes,
Okay, so it's not like we ever, if Xenia ever goes under, then we wouldn't be out anything. Like somebody else would just come.
no, it'd be,
Territory be sold.
it'd be territory be broken up or sold, or somebody else would come in to run it or something.
Okay.
But no, you would be out of water.
So to be able to use Redfold as a backup, which I just heard we're doing right now.
Right.
Would we still need to upgrade our water treatment plant?
Yes, if you stayed with Xenia and said, we're gonna stay with Xenia, at least for a while, then yes, you need to be doing something with your existing water plant. The filter is starting to rust out in the bottom. One of the pumps doesn't work very well, or doesn't work. And the other ones need some TLC. Your controls are the original to the plant.
It's a mix.
Yeah, so
That
controls.
So did you bring that up a couple of meetings ago? You're gonna end up
Yeah.
with more annual expenses of 20-some thousand, or?
Yeah, if we, just as Ford said, if we do nothing, buy from Xenia, no matter what, if you want a backup source, which we'll talk more about later, it's pretty handy to have. We have to do some, it may not be like a major rehab, but we have to put a little money into it.
Yeah, we're not talking millions, but
Sure.
we're talking some. I'm not looking for, no decision tonight or not. I'm gonna, three things I'm hearing. One is looking at the blend option with Xenia and the alluvial wells. Two, need to do some checking on our costs with Sarah. And three, looking at historically what has been the rate increases from Xenia. So I'm planning on doing those three things, and then I would back here next meeting to kind of present a final report. So,
Thanks, sir.
okay, any questions?
But
Okay,
thank you. Great. Can I just say some things about this? This is available for public to look at and look at options. Is this okay to share or not yet?
It's not
You wanna wait another
it's
month?
not a
Okay.
final yet, I
That's
think I'd rather wait till it's.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, number 5, certified site plan, heating coolers of IEDA.
Hello again.
Hello.
You're my new favorite community. I guess I'm at the mercy of you tonight, just questions that you have, whatever, I don't have my own agenda for this, so just let me know what you not.
There's been, I had asked her to come out. I mean, you've been very energetic, very thorough, and you love what you share with us. I'm a big proponent of this certified site program. And there's some expense to it on what, I guess, the board be completely aware of what that is and to consider it. I made the call to, it seems what is the only option for us, for a site behind McDonald's, and the guy is willing to work, the owner is willing to work with us, he's very nice. He's got some reservations on language and such, which I don't blame him, I would too, but, I guess if you could give us an overview of what the next steps would be for the board to look at, and what costs and the timing of those costs.
How many acres are we talking back there?
That site's only 80, I'm assuming, you probably, just the site.
80's fine, we have a minimum, if you're looking at, again, a single user, we do the single user sites, and then we do the parks, which are set up for multiple users, so we're looking specifically at building a park, because you want different types of industrial uses in there, then, if our minimum is 50 acres, it's 25 for a site, so you're fine either way, whichever way you decide to go. So, really, like I said, right now, just for your talking points and how you get this started, for our purposes, it's, again, starting to have conversations with those utilities. You guys have municipal utilities, so that takes some of that away, but it's on natural gas, electricity. At least if you haven't had conversations with them yet, start talking to them. I'm not sure when you're gonna wanna do this, when you're gonna wanna move ahead,
I
but
don't mean
yeah.
to interrupt you,
No.
but who does all that stuff? We're 5 volunteers here, and so everybody else is, so, is that part of the expense to incur? or-
We don't do that, that's, we have in other communities, it's been the economic development arm that's
Which
kind
master-
of done that. Some reached out, really worked and coordinated, you just have a point of contact, and that person, we have got another community going through right now that their city clerk is pulling the weight on that, and she's like, I know nothing about certified sites, when she came in, and she's pretty educated, and she's doing all the steps, and it's basically just a process. We walk you through it again, we are on the phone with you once a month, talking about where you're at in the process, and we answer all the questions and everything as you go through that, so.
Ash, this is what I was mentioning on Monday about Marquita, right? You know, that's the person that helps, because she's would have been through this, but Gal.
Yeah.
Road. So anyway,
So, it just depends on when you're looking at pulling the plug, again, we do 2 application rounds a year, so our next one we have one in August, that's not gonna be even feasible to start looking at that. We have crop in the field, so you have to do all of those surveys and things to that for certification. So the next round opens up in January. And the application would be due like June 30th next year. And then we have a second round, but again, towards the end of August, the second round would be done. So we give people, if you just learn about the program and want to jump in January when we open the application, that gives you about 6 months to get everything wrapped up. And the longest part of that is just trying to get that due diligence done. Obviously, if you're gonna go out and have to do borings or anything, we're not gonna get into the ground until, depending on how wet it is. Obviously, in the winter, it's gonna be frozen, depending on wet. So, I mean, we know those things too, and we take that into consideration through the process. But that's, that really what happens is you attend a kickoff webinar that we hold in August, or in January. In that, when you do that, we send you the guidebook that you've all seen for this year's guidebook. There is just a notice to pursue certification, and that's a simple, I want to say 2 or 3 quick questions that you really answer and just submit to us. Us being, it goes to a uploaded portal that our Site Solution or our West Site Solutions gets, our consultants. Once they get that, they take, and you're also uploading an aerial picture, so they can kind of see again, is there a transmission line running through, what does this look like, is it all wetlands? They take a look at it, and if they don't see any red flags, then they will, that's really what starts the process moving forward. So then we set up these monthly calls with you, and start walking through the process of what you need to do. Usually the first steps are those utility questionnaires. So that's low hanging fruit because that's free. It just is a matter of working with your providers to get all that information.
so what is that?
You can pull those up and look at them anytime. They're in the guidebook. The link is, although you might check that, Brian, because Quest has moved into a different system, so the links might not work in there anymore. But basically, they're wanting modeling. So for natural gas, there's capacity levels for utilities that you need to meet a minimum of for certification. So they're wanting to ask your utility providers, here's the threshold minimum. How, do you have that yet? Is that available yet at the site? If it's not, we don't expect you to run it to the site. We just want that cost and plan and timing. So we have a minimum amount of time that we require to get it there. It usually ranges for at the minimum from, depending on the size of site. It'll go from either 6 months, can go all the way up to a year for really large sites. And so you just have to work with utility. They really just get the questionnaires themselves. They go through the questions and answer those on your, for you. And those do take some time. Natural gas especially takes, because first of all, we're asking them to do things without a project. That's always hard for everybody to anticipate a load, and we know that. But most of them now are getting familiar with this program. We've been around over 10 years, so they know kind of what we ask. So that's the first part. And again, we just start, and then you just start working on the due diligence that you can do. Again, we have the geotechnical, the phase 1, the threatened and endangered. We do the title survey. And
That's a third-party engineer.
that's an engineering firm that you would contract with. And that's where your costs are incurred again.
Can you size that? What is that ballpark? To me, what I had in mind is all of the billions of dollars being spent in the metro on data centers.
Yeah.
That to me is an opportunity, and it's similar to what Van Meter put together. There's 30 to 50 solid, strong paying jobs, tons of electrical use, and a lot of valuation.
And if you've got the infrastructure for it, that could be a really good fit.
Yeah.
It just depends on, we never know, it just always depends on what comes through the pipeline as far as projects. But cost wise, if you're looking at there's, like I said, at the utmost I've seen lately, again, is that about 200,000, and that's for that almost 800-acre site.
That's it.
And so when you bring that down to 80, I mean, you're gonna have a minimum amount that and the firm is gonna charge, but I would think that, again, depending on the topography, there's always variables. But I would estimate you at the low range, 40, and maybe up, it would be under 100,000, I'm guessing, unless you had to go in and do a phase 2, or you had mitigation that you had to do, there's always, if you have, there's always other circumstances that could come to play, but if it's a plot of land, there hasn't been anything on it, there's no archaeological finds, or a cemetery that's been there for a while, or they don't find an arrowhead or something, it's usually pretty non-invasive, it just kind of goes through. And there could be, like we do a pre-assessment with DOT and a pre-assessment with the SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office. So when we start this process rolling, we'll get some information for you, and then I send that off to both of those agencies. And they take a look at the site, and they look to see if any other surveys have been done there. So SHPO, there may have been some easements or something that went in there, but they may have already had some surveys done, so that would give them familiarization with the site. So all of those things are beneficial if there's already been things done. And as far as the Department of Transportation, it's just basically, what else have we been talking to people about, any roadways or intersections or railroad or whatever they do, they just take a look at it and see if there's anything that stands out to them or things that you should know. As it's in your backyard, you probably know everything that's going on there, so that might not be an
So-
issue.
From start to completion, how long does that process take?
Up to a year. Yeah, it's, like I said, if you start in January, it would be 6 months into June, you'd have to apply by the end of June. If you can't hit that end of June mark, that's why it seems like it's really close between the two applications. But usually if the applicants can't hit that June 30th memo, the date, then they can go and they can finish off the next 2 months and get at the end of August. So that's what we look like. So we're not locking you into June. If you can't get it done, you get it in August, and that's what we'll go for. And if that doesn't work, we work with you. We're really flexible. Quest is amazing. But if it just isn't looking like you're gonna get it done, then we just move you to the next year. So but the program is designed to take up to 12 months.
Are you familiar with the band meter selection and that? Any estimate on what that tax revenue and utility revenue would bring in, or is that?
That is, no, because we don't, it's a Dallas County thing, they would have that. There might be tax information online that you could try to get, I just don't. We do the upfront stuff, and since they weren't a certified site anymore, I usually follow up with them and get capital investment. We don't ask for reports or anything once we go through the process from you, but we watch. It's your site, we don't, but I do like to find out if you get a project, what was the capital investment that'll be coming in or whatnot, because that's just information we track. But I might have even I think I've reached out to Rachel in Dallas County just to see if she could provide that to me, and she said she would, I just haven't got it back from her yet. But as far as that's the capital investment, that's not what's the tax benefit going to be.
Sure. Yeah. So we have an engineer here, we're looking at a substation project, evaluating that, and the usage from a data center he was referencing would be more than the entire community.
Probably.
So that gives you kind of a perspective of the benefit of, it's a Rose Acres sort of water side, right?
Yeah.
So.
They love them because, they're selling a lot of energy, so.
You're right,
Yeah.
right. So.
The other thing is, ridiculous capacity, so, and the water can also be a big issue with those, although they're doing self-contained, you see more and more data centers that are self-contained, so they're reusing that water and cooling it, so they don't have all of the recycling back and forth. I wish you could, certainly now, while you're waiting, if you would like to reach out, if you've got a county, or an engineering firm that you normally use, here, you can reach out to them he doesn't have anything else to do, so you can put some costs together for you around the guideline, and we always encourage a couple of quotes just so you, but if you've got a great working relationship and everything's good, you can use whoever you want to. I think I've sent you the list. I sent you the list of engineers. I don't know if I did or not, honestly. I don't know that it ever came up before, so it doesn't matter. But you can get that quote put together for what it might cost to do those surveys. And then you'll look at the title, bring in the abstract, that has to be current. The boundary survey has to be done if it's not already done. So those are the kind of costs that you'd be looking at. We don't cover those, but we do cover all of the consulting costs and everything that goes into the site visit when they fly out
So what would you estimate that dollar value to be
for.
for what the state covers? So if we
Well,
cover
I know what our contract is with them.
just ballpark.
Yeah, and it's different every year, just depending on number of sites. This year, we've got a lot of sites going through new certifications as well as recertifications. But we average out, I wanna say our current contract, and don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% sure, is right around, I wanna say $300,000, and that's a 3-year contract.
But I mean, like if we're paying 50,000,
Mhm.
what is the state covering?
What is,
Yeah, I mean, how much, you guys are doing a bunch of work related to this as well.
yes, we're doing, and then Quest puts a lot of time in it.
Yeah, so what would that dollar value be? We're paying 50, but the dollar value spent.
It's
to do
probably just about equal.
this. So it's about.
It's probably about 50-50 by the time you put in Quest time. And if there's no, there's a lot of variables of that too, but then my time that goes into that, so a good portion of my salary comes out of that. So, yeah, I would say it's, now when you're looking at the one that's got the 200,000, maybe not so much. But they have to spend as much time as this, depending on the size of the site. So the larger a site for them, the more assessment they have to do as well. So, it all, larger is gonna be more expensive, that's just the way it is, you supersize, you're gonna pay a little more, but if you're down there in the less than 100, it should be pretty normal.
So I guess, does anybody else have any feedback on this?
I got a couple questions probably for you and for you, Brian. If we go down this road with the partnership with the city type of thing, and we get interest from other types of industry to come into this site that aren't necessarily high energy, high utility usage type businesses, are we looking to say, no, this is not what this is for? Are we targeting certain ones that
Yeah.
are specifically high energy use?
To me, the only interest I have in this as a utility board member is trying to attract a data center. They've got great jobs, they've got great valuation, and we need the incremental revenue, so when costs go up, we don't have to raise our residents. That's my own opinion, but if we got something else, that's fine, but, to go along with what you're talking about, outside entities, you get into the point of, okay, you have Adair County REC to the east of their other landowners, you expand that from an 80 to 160, whatever, maybe they would share in some of the incremental costs, I don't know. But, that's involving other people and it makes it more complicated. I don't know, I mean, that the city's in a position to, with what the state's doing, even, to me, I wanna look at this as 100% our expense, 100% our accountability, worst case scenario. So if someone else does help, if we ask C for participation or the city, that's just a nice to have, I guess.
Yeah, well, obviously, there's gonna have to be partnerships with all the providers of all the services that go into the site plan, right?
And you are the utility, and we do see a lot of our certified sites that are served by outside Mid-American Airlines. They have been active in certified sites as a development initiative for them too. So
Well,
that's
actually,
kind of-
not only utility, because the city would be a utility there too with sewer.
Right,
Yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily be all our project.
Yeah, no, and that's very normal, so. We have had sites that we've had two or three on different, the sites that we certified, they had several providers that covered, because the ground can be covered by different, depending on where it's located at. We don't care, we ask that you think about it, what kind of business are you trying to attract? We just want it to be an industrial use. We have you sign a reimbursement agreement when you start the process, and basically that says that over a given amount of months, if, let's say, you certify in December of 2026, and in June of 2026, you have a housing developer that comes in, he sees the growth moving and wants to develop that plot of land right there. You're certainly welcome to do that. It's your land, you can do whatever. We would do it probably, we have the reimbursement agreement for a clawback for some of those consulting costs. We've never had to use it, but just that's why we do that. And then after so much time has gone by, that kind of evaporates too, because you get closer to the recertification time to it. So if it's 2.5 years out from certification, for example, and you decide you wanna go a non-industrial route, it would probably be an issue at that point for any.
Is it typical for this site planning to be very industry specific?
It's not, and we have very wide, as long as we have light industrial all the way to heavy industrial, and then whatever your community, how you define those. We don't want, we don't want housing, we really, warehouses aren't ideal just because they're not, they're just not ideal, but we don't, if they're industrial, we allow that, but that's not our favorite. So just certain things, we don't want retail centers, things like that.
From the other data centers or the like that have recently within the last 10 years into Iowa, is it that it started at the utility or the city and they prepped the site fully and they waited for everything to be done and then went out and tried to specifically target data centers? Or was there early marketing of, hey, we're looking at doing this, we're ready to go through this type of procedure, we're gauging the interest of potential players in this specific type of field, and then they went ahead and did this type of thing?
First, I would say probably none of the sites had a lot of infrastructure, if any, at all, run to the site. They have that planning in place and the cost outlined. So that wasn't necessarily there. We have had some that were specifically attracted to the site because it was a certified site and that was all they were looking at. I think I've talked about that before about the Bondurant site with the fulfillment center, which is oddly strange that I really like it as much as I do because they had to put those darn big electric poles running by my house out in the country. But darn, I can get something delivered in 2 hours from my house because I'm only 8 miles from it. So I don't like to do a lot of shopping on Amazon. I want to shop to support little. Sometimes you need those extra bits. But as far as some of the others, I don't really know. There are specific brokers out there that do nothing but look for data centers. Iowa or IEDA ourselves, we don't market a lot to data centers. We don't need to anymore. We don't really incent them. They incent themselves to come out here. So we don't really, our incentives up to this point, we changed our bill this year, but always had been a job related incentive at a certain wage level. We did do that. I mean, we did that for Amazon and Bondurant because they had positions that were over that like $28 threshold. But that's as far as tax abatements and things like that. We don't do anything with that.
So are there those brokers that we should potentially be getting in contact with at the
There
beginning of
is-
this stage?
There is one, and I don't remember the name because I know we talked to him, it was about a year ago that I talked to him. I can visit with our business development team and they might have some thoughts for you about people that you could reach out to or who they can reach out to on your behalf. I'm not sure what the relationship is there and I don't get into that, but there are specific businesses and that's where their sweet spot is and that's what they do. I guess at your point, at this point, just you can start thinking about how you want to market this. You've got a lot of time in front of you before you decide what you want to do. So in this process, it's never too early to start thinking about marketing. When Quest provides you that final deliverable package, which is about a 40-page package that has all maps and everything that you went through certification, they send a separate document that is marketing your site. So I can send that to you so you can take a look at it. It'll be for, I think it's pretty generic because they send the same one to everybody. But I'll give you some things to start thinking about as far as marketing. They always put it on their website. We put it on our website. And there's a lot of, I was looking, we had our business development team meeting today and I was looking at the projects that are coming and one of them just had a name project and I don't get too involved in the projects either. I'm not technically on the business development team, but it was just, their criteria was certified site. So you'd have some towns listed and then there was one that just said certified site. So they are specifically looking at certified sites because they want that quick turnaround to market again. Did I answer everything you were asking? Okay, I tend to start talking and I forget.
Yeah, I figured if we're really targeting that specific industry or, well, first, are there other hot industries at this time that might be high utility consumption, that we should be looking at that's similar to that type of, data center.
And that I, because then you start getting into some things like processing, like food processing, and I don't know that you want that behind your McDonald's, you may not, but you may not want that, it's the first thing that you see when you come in. So those are just all things you have to think about. There's, I can ask, if I recall, remember to do this, I'll ask my team too, if they know specific ones outside of the data centers that, you're talking specifically, as far as electricity, or
I just.
where do you guys shine in your utilities? Are you,
We're water and electric.
what's that?
We're water and electric.
Okay, but do you have excess water and electric? Do you have a lot of capacity so that might attract a certain kind of, like we have like a plant, like a site in Waterloo, for example, they've got a lot of water capacity there. So that's why you'll see some of the Tysons and stuff like that, because they use a lot of water. If you have the amount of water that you need to do the certified site and keep your city going, and then have room still for expansion for homes, that may be enough water is perfect, but it may not be like robust water. So you might not get that type of a business. Again, with electricity, I'm not sure, there might be some biotech things that you might be able to attract. Research park type of things use a lot of electricity with the types of equipment that they have within those. And there, I've talked to both the research park in Iowa City and the one at Iowa State, just they're running out of room in their research park, so they're looking for other places that might be good to go as well. So I can ask our developers.
Yeah, those aren't, I mean, it's, I guess I was just thinking a high volume
Yeah,
electrically, and those data centers just keep coming. I mean, when Trump went and got all of that so-called investment money for the Middle East, it was all, I mean, a large portion was focused on data centers that came out.
yeah, and
In the East Coast, is
with the
investment.
amount that we're using, and then we've got the new technology, and you've got AI, and all the other coming in now. I don't think they're going away anytime soon. With 80 acres, I would think that would almost, they would probably put, if you identified one, it would probably be a park where they would put several buildings and data centers and have different things on there is what I would be envisioning, but, yeah, so that's your primary goal, is to get something like that.
I guess just from your personal, professional opinion about, if we've got the electricity and the water, that's not a problem. If we can deliver on that piece and we can get a ready-made site here. Our location to the interstate, between Omaha and Des Moines, what we can serve for our employment needs and those types of things. Are we potentially a fairly attractive target if we have a ready-made site out there?
I would think so, yeah, just by your location itself, labor is not an issue here, you got a big labor shed. If you can handle all the utilities, and what you see the data centers tend to cluster. So you've got the Facebook stuff over there, and you've got, Microsoft, you've got Google, and then now you've got the Van Meter site, which is going to be several, and then, so that's not very far away. So you think, well, maybe if they're looking to get out of West Des Moines, which is getting, they're getting full. So the logical choice would maybe be to move farther west if you had a location that you could look at. I wish I had a crystal ball, but you have a nice location, you really do. I mean, you're far enough out now, that you still have the quality of life here too, which is also one they look at, and you would be able to pull in local people, but you also have that community distance.
And there's plenty of expansion moving this direction.
Yes,
Interstates being redone,
Yeah.
all that type of stuff.
yes, I know, I drive. I don't drive it that often, I was rushing, we had an accident, I was a little late because there was an accident. So, slow everything down, but,
I'd like to move forward with this. I'd like to make a motion to do that with Forrest, give us an estimate, move forward with Amy as well, if everybody else is at that point. Because I believe in this, I think it's got a lot of opportunity to it, and I guess
Move forward as just initiating the process of,
get going on, get sizings, get cost estimates from Forrest.
we also gotta look at capacities,
That's what I'm asking, yeah, that's what Forrest would do, correct? Or,
as far as engineering studies, yeah, he would be able to,
yeah, that's.
whatever ones you do, I would think.
So that's the whole problem with this certified site discussion, is there's a lot of discussions going on amongst a lot of people and a lot of groups. And I have no idea what goes into it, absolutely none, you know. I mean, you talk about it at a high level, right?
Yeah.
But there's so much that goes on, goes into that and the evaluation. So it's
It's, I mean, it's how we left, I won't kid you,
Well, what's the cost to initiate though?
that's what he would
there
give
is
us.
no cost, well,
That's what he would give us.
his quote, if he charges you to put the things together.
No, that's not, yeah. he
Because
would
right
give us
now, we're
that.
looking at raising our rates quite a bit to go on with this other project, that's why I'm asking.
And then you have to look at the land, I mean, we do require that you have control of the land, you don't have to own it.
Sure.
You have to have an option on it, first option, for a period, that period of 3.5 years. I don't know if there's, I don't know how he wants to do that, the landowner, if he expects to have some payment down on that, if he just wants to sign a paper, it goes both ways. So that's just, you know, so that's usually, again, the most difficult part of the process for applicants if they have multiple users. If you have a single user that's willing to work with you, the best case scenario is if you just went out and bought it and said, it's ours, we have control. Next best would be having a landowner, single landowner that has some skin in the game for economic development for the city of Stuart. So,
We have a motion by building to refer to forest for.
Yeah, refer to Forrest and, I guess, acquire anything you need from us to move forward to the next steps. And we just, I guess, scope costs and timelines on what, you know, each step, so we would know what we're approving when and what the cost implications would be.
yeah,
The other part of that, whoever would contact SIPCO, Pat mentioned SIPCO would have to be a part of this, right? So at some point, you know, they've got to be reached out to. Maybe they can help with the cost share as well.
we ask for all the utilities, so whoever touches the land and serves that land, you may have 2 telcos that could do it, you know, so we ask. And if you don't get a question, it's important for us to get the questionnaires back from the main utilities. If you've got that site that's served by 3 different telco providers, we require fiber to be served eventually to it, just like all the other ones. There's some internet providers that just don't respond, but we do need to have something back from somebody, and so sometimes that can be a bone, and I don't know who, a contingent, I don't know who serves that area, but yeah, so you can start working on those. There's no cost outlay for you immediately, just whatever the, you know, the options would be, and then if you know you're going to want to do something or, you know, with that eventually, and you have, you know, you like the option, then you can start moving on some of those things like the title and the boundary survey and things like that.
So is that something you could bring back to us at the next meeting to look at, an estimate to do this for us, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And do you have, I'm gonna get you, Brian, a new copy of the guidebook and you can disseminate it as you will. I don't know if you have the newest one with the newest links. The guidebook would be the same, but the links for the utility questionnaires, or I can send it to you, Sarah, if you want me to, and you can forward it out to everybody. Again, the guidebook's the same, it's just they changed their server something, they changed they used to have SharePoint, now they're at something called Ignite, so.
Some communities also get support in some manner or fashion from the larger local businesses in the area, maybe the school district, anybody to like put in some sort of, not necessarily financial, but, you know, help with the marketing, putting good word in, the networking piece of whatever goes into the site planning.
If it's outside of costs, I don't know that, if you've got a large industrial user that might be a supplier to an industry that's coming in, that might have some skin in the game, they might actually provide some help to certify it as far as costs. But as far as marketing, whatever you can do is basically what it comes down to, as far as, you know, there's,
You know, we've got a nice partner in Carl Chevrolet that's
Yeah.
here, and they might, you know, find it in their interest that, wow, the city of Stuart is growing, they want to get this data center going, you know, whatever we can do from a, you know, PR marketing perspective, to help in that sort of endeavor. Like, do other communities try to get that?
yeah, I haven't seen that, but that doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Be creative, you know. You wanna sell your site, at the end of the day, do what you want to do to sell your site, as long as it's legal.
Always have that
I have had that.
Okay, we have a motion by building. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Crawford?
Okay, how do you vote? Crawford,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Belden?
Yeah.
Horton?
Yep.
Amy, yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're so very welcome. I'll send you the guidebook and then just let me know who you want some information. I'll send that to you.
Next month, we're certified.
Oh, sure, like that. I would be your favorite person. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I just added two words.
Sorry.
Thank
We
you.
can look at
I
this,
think I had the cards.
we gotta pay for the substation. and back this up and you say, you get a certified site, you sit back on this stuff, we're a year, 2 year out, whatever that period is. Is there a Houdini in the bottle that could say, okay, get a certified site, get a data center, maybe Sitco helps with, I don't know, some of those costs, maybe that. Just a thought. You're looking at $7 million, this cost is 1.5% of that, right? So I mean, if you spend the 1.5% to get to the substation level, your substation doesn't even service something this big anyway, so you're gonna have to put something else in.
It's gonna take another substation.
That's what I mean, so
So you're gonna have a hard time convincing Cisco to do it if it's just a maybe.
no, I'm saying maybe you acquire one in the meantime, because all these are coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
I don't know, that'd be a quick turnaround,
Yeah.
really quick turnaround, but just a thought. We're
Cisco
not-
would definitely be involved in this, so we would all be on us.
Yeah,
That's
so I-
okay.
then at that point, you're not putting in a substation
You're welcome.
at 7 million, you're putting in a substation for 20 million, and Sitco and maybe somebody else are gonna pay
I mean, a lot of these places, they pull pretty big, and that's what we pull with in town or
for it.
town. So you're putting in a pretty decent sized substation. And if you want backup for that substation, then we're, well, we're back to the conversation we've been having for a few years about, we got a backup out there, but is it big enough? And do we make this one bigger than what we, if we're gonna redo the north substation, is it big enough then to back up something like that?
Gotcha.
It's, you gotta coordinate all that kind of stuff too, because it's not unusual for, if you got one substation and a transformer goes bad or a relay goes bad, you want another site to feed it from. That, we just need to tie it together somehow.
Okay, number 7, city administrator report.
Yeah, try to go through very quickly. Okay, first page, it shows we are at 7.3 million in the bank. Next page is the difference between the beginning balance on July 1st, 2024 and to the end of May of 2025. We have a plus number of 581,000. Next page, we are within our budget. Our budget, of course, looks high at 13 million because we were talking about all these refinance and all the stuff that Chip was proposing, but nothing's gonna happen. So obviously, we have enough in the budget to finish this fiscal year, which is, this month is the end of the fiscal year. Next page is what happened between the beginning of May and the end of May. We are at a plus number of 61,000. Next to the board is a breakdown of the budget. You see at the electric, we have 9 million, because that's where the refinance was gonna be, but of course, it's not gonna happen, so we'll move on with that subject. Next to the board, delinquent account, we have one, and shown on page 1 with the check mark on the left and right. That take us to the end of the report on page 4. The next report is the delinquent account waiting for. We have one shown on page 1, the check mark without saying name, and that take us all the way to page 4. Next report, the payment agreement, we added 5 people with the check mark on the right hand. The next report is the pay in full payment agreement, we have one showing on page 3 at the bottom. That takes us to all the way to the end of the report on page 8. Next report is a budget billing. We added one, is the check mark, next to, on the right. The next report is the deceased. We don't have any changes. That I have not frozen whole report.
Okay, number 8, public forum.
I just had one short thing. You guys may have seen on the news today, Des Moines and Central Iowa Water Works, they're having kind of a shortage right now. It's related to their nitrate removal, and it's kind of a complex deal, but anyway, that trickles down to us, and we went ahead and just turned the wells on today, so none of that water shortage is affecting us, none of that nitrate issue right now is affecting us. So we're just gonna run for the foreseeable future. We don't know if this is gonna be resolved in a few days or a month, you know? Our restricted use wells, we can run up to 30 days, and we could potentially run a whole month, and then we would just talk with the DNR at that point, if we had to run further. So this is kind of a nice exercise just to see how everything goes. The only thing that would stop us is equipment breakdown, which is a pretty real possibility, but barring that, we'll be using our wells for, I was planning on a little while anyway. Just making you aware of that.
Thank you, Vince. Thanks, man.
Anybody else?